afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Sean Talks Cybersecurity. I'm your host, Sean Wolfslegel, and welcome for another day of cybersecurity. And today is Friday, March 7th, 2025. It is a beautiful day in sunny Pennsylvania, and a little cold, but doing all right over here in our neck of the woods. And so, yeah, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining in live on the live stream here. We're going to go ahead and hop right into some cybersecurity news. If this is your first time watching us live, or watching me live, I guess I should say, I do have some help from my wife, so that's why I say us. But basically, what we do here is we go over cybersecurity news, we do some try hack me, and then at the end, I might have a couple tips and tricks for you if we have any time left over. So without further ado, let's just dive right into the cybersecurity news for the day. So, okay, let us see. So the first bit of news is from Dark Reading, written by Rob Wright. And so this actually continues with what I've been talking about. This is a pretty big deal, I think. I'm not in the industry working right now, so I can't say what it's like to actually be out there live and in person and saying what I would be seeing if I was working for an enterprise right now. But I would imagine that this is a pretty bad thing for a lot of businesses right now. With this ESXi instances, 41,000 remain vulnerable to a critical VMware vulnerability, one of 3 that Broadcom disclosed earlier this week. Yeah, bad news indeed if you are a ESXi VMware customer. So if you have 3 zero-day vulnerabilities in VMware products have put tens of thousands at risk of VM escapes, which is definitely some scary stuff. We have a CVSS score of 9.3 as of March 6th, and the bug leads to an out-of-bounds write condition in ESXi and workstations. So definitely hoping that they get a patch out for this ASAP. We have 41,500 vulnerable instances on March 4th, following the disclosure of the vulnerabilities, and the countries with the highest number of unpatched instances are China, France, and of course the US. So definitely hoping and praying for everybody who has an ESXi instance in their environment that we can get Broadcom to put out a patch here ASAP, so that way you guys can get fixed. So it looks like it's ESXi, Workstation, and Fusion. Which is actually, I think Workstation would affect more than just your enterprise customers, because I believe Workstation, last I checked, that you can download a free version of that out there. Let's just do a real quick DuckDuckGo search here and just see if we can find out VMware Workstation, if they still have that available for anybody to. So you got Workstation Pro. They used to have Workstation Player. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, you can see here, not TechSpot. That's not what we want. Yeah, don't do what I just did, and don't just click random links. That's bad. That's really bad. So yeah, downloading and installing Workstation Player. We want just VMware Workstation. We'll just go out here to VMware blogs and see what we got. So VMware Workstation Pro now available free for personal use. So it used to be the case that you could just get Workstation Player, but now it looks like they're giving everybody Pro for free. So even better. But now the downside is that with that news that I just mentioned, you can get, if you have Workstation and you download it right now, you're potentially vulnerable to this. So I don't recommend using this. I recommend using something like VirtualBox if you can switch over to it for the time being. For anybody unfamiliar, this is what VirtualBox looks like. Probably most people who are listening to this know what VirtualBox is. I would imagine, but if you don't know what it is, VirtualBox is just another alternative to VMware, and it's open source. And well, no, I don't want to say it's open source. I don't know if it's open source because it's developed by Oracle, but yeah, no, it is open source. It even says it right here on the front page. Okay, all right. Yeah, sorry guys, I had a little bit of caffeine here before all this, so I'm wired up and ready to go. I'm feeling good right now. I'm ready for tackling this live stream with you all. So yeah, you got powerful open source virtualization. You can download VirtualBox. I know that it's very controversial in the enterprise environment to have one versus the other. Some people like VirtualBox, some like VMware Workstation, but no matter what, right now, this is probably your best bet if you're running VMs. I would say if you can figure out a way to I would say probably put it on a VLAN, anything that you have on your VMs. Uh, and then, just kind of keep everything segmented, keep all your network traffic segmented, because yeah, this is not good at all. So I know VMware customers right now are probably shaking a little bit, and yeah, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so all right, let's get into some Try Hack Me. So we can close out of that, and we can dive into Try Hack Me now. So this will be our last video for websites, and if you've been following along over the last couple days, we've been working our way through Try Hack Me's pre-security path and how the web works, and so now we're going to just kind of put it all together according to how Try Hack Me puts it. Now, you might notice here on my live stream, I actually have this nice new little tool that I just got, and we're going to test it out and see how it works, but it would be my first time actually using it, so we're going to learn in real time. We're going to figure this out. But basically what this allows me to do is I have a nice Wacom tablet here, just a basic Intuos one, not anything like too fancy. But I can essentially just, put like a little line under here. That's a terrible line. That's probably the worst line you've ever seen in your life, if I had to guess. But yeah, like we're doing this live. We're doing this live, so we're learning together, like I said. But the nice thing is, I can actually annotate now whenever I'm kind of talking to you guys, and I don't have to just like kind of what I've been doing has been. I guess my machine doesn't like that. I'm kind of putting it through the ringer. Maybe we'll close out of that for now. But I see I'm kind of glitching out here on the screen. But yeah, nice little tool here called Epic Pen. We're gonna go ahead and just close out of that because my Mac is not too thrilled with me about that. So, but in the future, I will figure out how to get that thing to not destroy my Mac in the live stream here, and we can make sure we have a nice little annotation app. Okay, well, thanks for dealing with me as we deal with the technical issues there. We'll see if we continue to stay live here. It looks like I'm completely frozen up. Hopefully, you guys can still hear me. Yeah, just my Mac is not happy with me at the moment. Sorry about that, y'all. But okay. Looks like we got putting it all together. So from the previous modules, you'll have learned that quite a lot of things go on behind the scenes when you request a web page in your browser. To summarize, when you request a website, your computer needs to know the server's IP address it needs to talk to. For this, it uses DNS. And your computer then talks to the web server using a special set of commands called the HTTP protocol. The web server then returns your HTML, JavaScript, CSS images, etc., which your browser then uses to correctly format and display the website to you. So we got this right here. We have request a website in your browser. Then it goes to your DNS, which will find a web server IP address and with DNS. And then it goes out to your web server, and then finally you get back your website. So nice little tying a bow on that. Try Hack Me, I like that. Okay, let's see what's next. So some other important things, and this is actually, I'm glad that they're talking about load balancers here. So we got load balancers. They're very important for actually web in general. So you have, when a website's traffic starts getting quite large or is running an application that needs to have high availability, one web server might no longer do the job. And load balancers give you the ability to have, you can actually have high traffic, right? So you can fail over if something becomes unresponsive. So you can see here you have 3 different servers, and so if one goes ahead and has an issue, it'll just fail over to the next thing, hence the name a load balancer, right? So when you request a website with a load balancer, the load balancer receives your request first, and then it forwards it to one of the servers behind it. So the load balancer uses the different algorithms, depending on what load balancer you have, and then it'll decide which server is best to deal with your request. So a couple of examples for these algorithms include round robin, which sends it to each server in turn, or weighted, which checks how many requests a server is currently dealing with and sends it to the least busy server. So load balancers also perform periodic checks with each server to ensure that they're running correctly, and this is called a health check. So Definitely love how TryHackMe brings it all together here nicely. You will use load balancers quite a lot in your career as a cybersecurity professional, so definitely know this information here about how load balancers work. It's extremely useful, even if you don't deal directly with web application security. You will be dealing with load balancers. I can promise you that. Okay, so let's move on to the next piece, which is a nice segue here. CDN, or a content delivery network. A CDN can be an excellent resource for cutting down traffic to a busy website, which allows you to host static files from your website, such as JavaScript, CSS, etc., and then host them on thousands of servers all over the world. So when the user requests whatever it is they want, the CDN then works out where the nearest server is physically located and sends the request there. So I think my example that I'm going to use for this one is going to be Netflix. Netflix is a perfect example because they definitely use CDNs. Essentially, if you're watching something in Japan, for example, you definitely want to, you're going to go to those servers that are out of Japan or the closest region over there, and then that CDN is going to deliver that Netflix content to you. Here in the United States, you might have a bunch of these different CDNs depending on where you live geographically in the US, and then it will basically deliver that content to you, right? And this is, I think, also really important to know, because if you have anything like any certain website, like TryHackMe, for example, since we're on here, they probably have a CDN for their actual website itself. One based out of the United States, probably one based in the United Kingdom where they're from. And then from there, they just you can send out that traffic. So Content Delivery Network is a very important resource for web. Databases. Can't do much of anything without a database. And so you need a database so that you can store information for the users, and web servers then are able to communicate with databases to store and recall data from them. So databases range from a simple text file, so like an Excel spreadsheet, for example. You can have even simpler, like it says here, just a plain text file, right? TXT, all the way up to a very specific database that is very useful. So you got things that are very popular like MySQL, you have MongoDB, you have Postgres, and there's many others. So MongoDB is definitely shot up in years. I definitely recommend checking out MongoDB. Let's go ahead and just take a little look out here at MongoDB for a second so I can show you. MongoDB. And then we can go ahead and look at Postgres as well. But yeah, MongoDB is a really cool database product, and depending on what you're building out, you can see here they have many different apps for you to use and many different products. So you have Atlas, and then you have these specifically databases, right? But especially with AWS, I was at an AWS conference a few years ago in Boston, Massachusetts, and there they had MongoDB give a really nice talk, and they basically went over how this tool actually really benefits your organization. I guess it's really easy to set up. I personally have never set up a MongoDB instance, but if I had to for the first time, I probably would go for them first just because of their reputation. They have a very good reputation. But also, too, let's not forget about Postgres as well, because Postgres has a very good reputation as well. So you've probably noticed this before if you've ever dabbled into web development. There's this nice little elephant here. That's their icon. And so Postgres is the most advanced open source relational database, hence why it's probably so popular, because open source gives a really nice, you don't have to pay anything for it, and you can just, you got a lot of good support out there probably. So Postgres or Mongo I would probably start with if I was going to start a database. And then you can't forget about SQL. SQL has been around for eons, and so anything like MySQL or Microsoft SQL Server, those are going to be very important. Okay, all right. Let's dig into web application firewall. So a WAF, for example, or for I guess other words here, WAF. A WAF sits between your web request and the web server, and its primary purpose is to protect the web server from hacking or denial of service attacks. Now, if I had to take a guess, as a cybersecurity professional, you're going to probably spend most of your time here as a cybersecurity engineer or analyst or architect. So web application firewall is probably going to be your best friend here. So I know I have myself spent quite a bit of time with firewalls. Firewalls are going to be, your bread and butter, so to speak, in this field. So A WAF sits between your web request and the web server, and its primary purpose is to protect the web server from hacking or denial of service attacks. So it analyzes web traffic for common attack techniques, and then the request from a real browser rather than a bot. It also checks if excessive amounts of web requests are being sent by something called rate limiting. And then that will allow only a certain amount of requests from an IP per second. So what can be used to host static files and speed up clients' visit to a website? So that would be our CDN. That's our Content Delivery Network. Okay, cool. And then what does a load balancer perform to make sure a host is still alive? So our load balancer does our health check. Health check. And then what can be used to help against the hacking of a website? That would be our WAF, Web Application Firewall. Cool. All right, so how web servers work. We have, what is a web server? A web server is a software that listens for incoming connections and then will utilize the HTTP protocol to deliver web content to its clients. The most common web server software you'll come across is Apache, and then you got Nginx, IIS, which is on Microsoft systems, and then finally Node.js. So a web server delivers files from what's called its root directory, and then basically it will define that in the software settings, and then you get Nginx and Apache. They will share the same default location right here. We got var www.html in Linux, and then IIS if you're a Windows guy. You're gonna be, which not hating on Windows guys, but we got C, inet pub, and then www root. So for example, if you requested the file example.com, right, it would send the file var www html picture JPEG from its local hard drive, right? Okay, so that's how a web server works at a very high level. Now, virtual hosts. Web servers can then host multiple websites with different domain names to achieve this. They use virtual hosts. The web server software checks the host name being requested from the HTTP header and then matches that against virtual hosts. And then if it finds a match, the correct website will be provided. If no match is found, the default website will be provided instead. Virtual hosts have the root directory mapped to different locations on the hard drive. For example, 1.com is mapped to var www website 1, and 2.com is mapped to var www website 2. And there's no limit to the number of different websites you can host on a web server. Now we have static versus dynamic. If you have done anything in the last few years as far as researching websites and how they're built, you know about React, and you know about anything where there has been this discussion. At least it was in like the early 2020s, like 2020 and then 2021, even a little bit further back than that, like 2018 and 2019. I remember this conversation being a popular topic, but React is kind of where this kind of breaks into it. So static versus dynamic. So static content, as the name suggests, is content that never changes. Common examples of these are pictures, JavaScript, CSS, etc. But it also includes HTML that never changes. So the files are directly served from the web server with no changes made to them. And then dynamic content is content that could change with different requests. So a blog would be a good example of that, as they mentioned here. And then on the homepage of the blog, it will show you the latest entries. If a new entry is created, the homepage is then updated with the latest entry. Or a second example might be a search page on a blog. Depending on what word you search, different results will be displayed. So these changes to what you end up seeing are done in the back end. So the back end is where the changes happen. And usually that's programmed out via like Node.js or Ruby, or in some cases even Python. Python's super popular with their Django framework. And so it's called the back end because what is being done is all behind the scenes. That's why they call it the back end. And then you can't view the website's HTML source and see what's happening in the back end, while the HTML is the result of the process from the back end. Everything that you see in your browser is the front end. So scripting and backend languages, a few that I already mentioned here. You can see Python, Ruby, and Node.js. But we also have some old school ones like PHP. Now, PHP is still very popular today. You will find that a lot of programmers still use PHP, although they have kind of fallen out. It has kind of fallen out of favor for Python and Ruby, and especially Python and Node.js. But then there's Perl and there's other ones as well. But a very basic PHP example of this would be if you request the website, this website here, example.com, you get this PHP back. So if index PHP was built like this, HTML, your body, hello, and then you have this PHP echo get name, right? It would output the following to the client, hello, and then the name, Adam, right? So you'll notice this client doesn't see any PHP code because it's on the back end. This interactivity opens up a lot more security issues for web applications that haven't been created securely. And that's where we get to actually hack and have some fun. So we'll get to that PHP, those PHP flaws. One of the reasons why PHP has actually fallen out of favor is due to security risks associated with it, because a lot of these old websites have never been updated, and you can actually do things like bug bounty and make some good money doing that. So what does the web server software use to host multiple websites? So if we go back up here a little bit here, we had our multiple websites. We had our virtual hosts, right? So if you remember here, we had, for example, 1.com is mapped to www website 1, and 2.com is mapped to website 2. So our answer is virtual hosts. And then what is the name for the type of content that can change? That is dynamic. If you remember, it would help if I could spell. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, so we got dynamic. Just still not happy with me here. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, cool. And then does the client see the backend code? Nay, the client does not see the backend code. And then we have a fun quiz here at the end. Let's see what we get as far as our quiz goes. Quiz goes, Quiznos. Does anybody remember Quiznos? Has anybody ever had a Quiznos sub before? They were really good back in the day. Like, they were really, really good. I really liked Quiznos, but sadly they have pretty much fallen off the face of the earth at this point. It's pretty hard to find a Quiznos. But anyway, let's see here. Let's see how this quiz goes. All right. So what's the instructions? Well, we view the site, which we've done, and then using everything you've learned from the other modules, drag and drop the tiles into the correct order of how a request to a website works to reveal the flag. Oh, technical issues. Log in to answer. What happened here? Let's see if we can just refresh and see if we can get in. Otherwise, I'm going to have to shake some things up here. Technical issues, everybody. Technical issues. I apologize for the live stream today. It's not too happy with me at the moment. Of course, we get all the way to the end. I'm almost done with it, and then we have this issue here right at the end. I apologize. All right, there we go. Just for some reason wasn't happy with me there at the end. Let's go back here to putting it all together. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Yeah, let's see. We got our fail button. We got to push the fail button, and then we got to do our
5 hours later
SpongeBob music here, and just got to keep it interesting for you all. You know, it just happens when it's live. I can't help it. All right, let's see. So we got to put these tiles and drag and drop them in the correct order of how a request to a website works. So you request your try hack me from your web browser. That would be right. And then the next one would be, so we got our web browser renders the HTML into a viewable website. That would be number 5. So kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Oh, no. That's our absolute last step. I thought this was only 5 steps. That would be number 11. There we go. Okay. Oh, everybody, I don't know if you knew this or not, but the chat is live. So if you have any questions, if this is your first time here, you can feel free to drop them in the chat there. You can see it right above my head there on the live stream. I would be happy to answer any questions you have as I go along here. But yeah, let's go ahead and continue. So we know we have our request, and then our next thing would be the web server receives the GET request. No, that's not right. So we don't get the GET request yet. Let's see. Check local cache for IP address. Query root server. Connect to the web server. Nope. Check your recursive DNS. Authoritative DNS server advises the IP. And let's see. Request passes through a web application firewall. Okay. So I guess it's probably going to check the local cache for IP address. Right. And then our next step would be to query. Well, yeah. So we would want to query the root server. No, our authoritative DNS, I believe. Nope. I was wrong. Query the root server. Nope. Sorry. All right. Let's get our fail button out here. There we go. We got our fail button. Thanks for sticking with me, everybody. We're getting there. Okay. So our web server receives the GET request, I would imagine. Nope. Okay. What do we want here? We want to check our recursive DNS server for the address. Yeah, there we go. And then the authoritative DNS server advises the IP address. No, wait. Yeah, that would probably be right. No, it would be query root server. Yeah, and then it would be the authoritative DNS. Right. So we request the try hack me, and then it goes out to our local cache for the IP address. It checks for the recursive DNS server, and then it goes out to the root server, and then to the authoritative DNS, and then we would have what's next here. So the connect to a web server on port 80. No, web application talks to database. We have the request would probably pass through the web application firewall next. And then, folks, what you're seeing right now is how I actually think in real time. So if you've ever wondered how the mind of Sean Wolfsegel works for Sean Talks Cybersecurity, this is how it works. I'm actually just doing this in real time right in front of you all. I'm actually thinking about this as we're going. So the next thing would be to request a request then passes through the web application firewall, and then it will goes through the load balancer, and then it will talk to the database. Nope, not yet. It will go ahead and do their GET request next. No, I was wrong. Well, there's only one other option, so it gets to connect on the web on the port. Okay, and then it will the web server will get their GET request, and then web application talks to the database. All right, yeah, we got the order finally. There we go.
5 hours later.
I got to get some more sounds on my soundboard here, everybody. I'm kind of running out of them now. I kind of killed them at this point, just kind of overdoing it. But let's see. This is going to finish up the room, isn't it? It is. But let's just take a second here and talk about. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We'll just hit next here. Continue. Yeah. And let's get rid of that. Hit next. Let's close out of that. All right, let's talk about the order here one last time before we close out of this. So our first step is to request try hack me. Then that goes out to check the local cache for the IP address that would be on your actual machine, whether you run a Mac, Windows, an iPhone, Android, whatever you have. It's going to check that local cache. Then that's going to go out to the recursive DNS server. And then that's going to query the root server to find authoritative DNS. Authoritative DNS will then advise the IP address for the website, and then that will request then passes through a web application firewall. Then it goes to the load balancer. So firewall, then load balancer. Then it will connect to the web server on 80 or 443. 80 is HTTP, 443 is HTTPS, and then it will get it will do the GET request. Then the web application talks to the database, and then boom, you get it in your web browser. And it all happens very, very fast. So I want to talk for a second real quick about this since it's Friday and I have just some random thoughts in my mind. But let's just talk about Feynman. This is a little bit going off of cybersecurity, but I want to talk about the Feynman technique because essentially that's what I do on this channel. And so a little bit of behind the scenes here. So Richard Feynman is a very, very influential man. Basically, his technique is that if you can't teach it, then you don't really know it. And sometimes to get good at something, you need to teach it. And basically, in real time, when I'm teaching, I'm also refreshing my mind on what it is that I've forgotten through time. And that's just what happens naturally. You can't keep everything up here all the time. Uh, Especially in cybersecurity, we deal with so much stuff, and it's really difficult to kind of keep all of that in your brain all the time. I think it's actually impossible. I don't think anybody knows everything, not unless maybe you're Elon Musk or something like that. But I don't know. It's really difficult to keep all those things straight all the time. But Feynman is really notorious because of his technique, and basically his whole thing was if you teach it, then you learn it even better, and you actually solidify that knowledge in your brain even more. So I would highly advise that if you're learning something, that you also try to teach it, because it will really, really help to solidify whatever it is you're learning. There's some really, really great videos out there on YouTube, and you can watch through them. If you just go on YouTube and type in the Feynman technique, it will show you basically what his techniques are. Let's see if we can get like a nice little graphic here of what the Feynman technique looks like. Yeah, there we go. The Feynman technique. So you choose a concept, you teach it to yourself or someone else, and then you identify your gaps in your own knowledge, and then you can review the material and simplify it. And actually, it goes back around. So you can see here, it goes back around. So choose your concept, teach it to yourself or someone else, which I do here on this YouTube channel. And then it goes back to return the source material if you get stuck. And then you simplify it, and then you keep going round and round and round. So essentially, the Feynman technique is kind of what this channel is built on, and what I highly recommend you do yourself whenever you're trying to learn something. I would highly recommend and advise you to go ahead and use the Feynman technique for all of your learning concepts whenever you're trying to learn cybersecurity. If you have a friend or a dog or whatever, who it could be, whoever you want it to be, basically pretend like just teach it to them and keep going along with that. I think that you'll find that you learn a lot from that. But also, a little thing here, if anybody has TryHackMe and they'd like to add me, this is my TryHackMe name, Wolf Slayer. You can add me here on TryHackMe, and we can compete against each other. But it's been great. Thank you guys so much for joining this live stream on this Friday. I apologize for the technical issues. My hardware is just not keeping up with me today. I'm really running this thing into the mud, and so I really am appreciative that you've stuck with me for all of this. Let me go ahead and switch over to my main cam and just say goodbye to everybody. Thank you guys so much. Please, if you found value out of this, hit that like, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon so you don't miss anything in the future. And thank you so much for joining me again today for another Sean Talk Cybersecurity. I hope you have a great weekend. Thanks again. See ya.